what are you doing home from work so early? I got fired. Great! Means we can start doing those videos again. 1995 was a big year for Star Wars fans. Lucas re-released the original trilogy, letterboxed, with THX sound on VHS. According to all the ad campaigns, this was the last time on home video.
One last time.
I can remember scoffing about that with my friends. As if they really expected us to believe they'd be putting Star Wars in the vault and never offering it for sale again? The ads made it sound like these would be the final Star Wars home videos until the end of time.
This will be your last chance to own the original version of Star Wars.
What I didn't realize was what Lucas meant was this was the final release of the original versions. In 2 more years, the first of a dozen special editions came out, which meant stuff like this.
Look, Jabba, even I get bored sometimes. You think I had a choice?
By the way, he eventually broke down and released the original versions again, as special features on the DVD. However, pretending it was still 1995, he released them just as they would have appeared on VHS or Laserdisc, which meant an SD letterboxed image in the middle of a 1:3:3 frame. What a fucker. But back in 1995, things were looking up for Star Wars fans. We had awesome new VHS, there were credible rumors of a theatrical re-release coming up, and Kenner began producing new Star Wars action figures. Oh, this was going to be awesome. After selling untold millions of toys, the original line of Star Wars figures and spaceships went out of production in 1985 due to waning interest in the wake of new toy lines like G.I. Joe, Masters of the Universe, Thundercats, Robotech. Fine, Robotech. Probably Glowworm stole a lot of their thunder too.
Night, 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 sleep tight.
Musical Glowworm, Glowbug, and Glow Butterfly, each sold separately from Hasbro Preschool.
Kenner tried creating further Star Wars lines, based on the cartoon series of Ewoks and droids, but they were no go. 10 years later, in 1995, there wasn't much remaining of my priceless Star Wars collection. Everything had been played with to shit. The Millennium Falcon suffered 1 crash landings too many, the TIE Fighter didn't look much better, and the Snowspeeder had been missing in the backyard for the last 4 winters. The figures I had left were wobbly and missing heads or legs. But soon, I'd be able to get brand new figures to replace the old ones. This was going to be awesome. I'll never forget the disappointment I felt when I saw the first picture of the new toys. These can't be them, I thought. They just look wrong.
The Star Wars Power of the Force collection.
The new figures weren't reissues of the vintage toys I'd fallen in love with as a child. They had been completely redesigned. Excessively redesigned, if you ask me. The original Kenner figures had a simplicity to them. Straight arms and legs, faces that sometimes were no more detailed than a Fisher-Price man. But there was an elegance to them. The stripped-down designs of the body and faces allowed kids to project their imaginations into these little plastic avatars and make them truly come to life. These new toys didn't trust in the power of imagination. Big muscles, posed arms and legs, these toys meant business. Unfortunately, this aggressive new design also made them look goofy as fuck. To this day, collectors like to make fun of the muscles on He-Man Luke Skywalker. True, these ripped, washboard abs were how Luke looked on the original movie poster, so I can accept Kenner beefing him up for a new generation of kids. But what was with that silly wide-leg stance? Is he supposed to be standing in front of a urinal? And something is majorly off with his face, too. He looks like he's been hypnotized. The primitive Kenner figures were a blank slate that allowed you to project whatever expression was needed. Happy, sad, scared, horny. The look on the face of the new Luke was impossible to ignore. A big wide-eyed duh. Figure after figure was a disappointment. Ben Kenobi looked weird. Han looked dumb. He was always falling over. Chewbacca looked like a monkey wearing a werewolf mask. The stormtroopers had big tits and tiny feet. They were impossible to stand up to. You had to stick their feet in a wad of gum if you didn't want them toppling over. Now, I did like some of the new Power of the Force figures. I don't want you to think this whole video is just negativity. I was impressed with the new Darth Vader. On him, the puffed up chest made sense. I mean, look at the motherfucker who played him. His body was nicely detailed, and he looked menacing. As much as I love the original Darth Vader figure, I have to admit, Kenner didn't completely capture his essence. Darth Vader was one of the very first figures sculpted, and this was the only version of him ever put out. When the toy lines for Empire and Return of the Jedi were released, Kenner got the chance to sculpt new versions of Han and Leia, even Lando, incorporating new design skills developed over the years. I kinda wish they had taken a crack at an enhanced Vader, but whatever. R2-D2 and C-3PO were also solid figures. Leia gets flack for looking like a monkey, and I've seen some people refer to her as Luke in drag. Although, since they are brother and sister, makes sense they look alike, right? Despite these misfires, the new line of figures was a big hit. So big, they supposedly bankrolled the Phantom Menace. The line also gave me the chance to finally obtain the figure that had eluded me all through my childhood. Han in Carbonite. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with the freezing of Han Solo. It was the perfect mix of tragic and badass. I used to reenact the freezing all the time, using my Han figure and the plastic bubble I'd saved. I'd fill the bubble with water, drop Han inside, and stick him in the freezer. An hour later, I had a frozen Solo. I'm ashamed to admit it, but in 1985, I was one of the many who turned their backs on Star Wars, enticed by the glamour of the newer toy lines like G.I. Joe and wrestling superstars. For years, I had wanted a Han in Carbonite action figure, but it wasn't until I lost interest in the toys that they actually put one out. One of the very last figures to be released. I was pissed. I remember seeing the picture on the card back and thinking, now? They wait until I don't give a shit anymore, and now they put him out? Where were you 2 years ago? Sheesh. The final figures didn't have the same reach as the earlier lines. I never saw them in stores, so I never would have gotten a chance to get my Han Carbonite even if I wanted to.
Don't move.
Don't move. You're gonna hit me with the,
I cut your hand off.
It's just as well. It's a pretty shitty figure. The Carbonite block is just a semi-translucent gray box. It doesn't look anything like Han frozen in the movie. And what's the deal with the Han figure? His face is all bloated, like he's been boozing with Jim Morrison the last 7 years. And why is his neck the same size as his head? Is this Han Solo or Moose McMoose? And look how his chest is all puffed up. The design is very similar to the Power of the Force figures that would be coming in 10 years. If the line hadn't been cancelled in the face of disinterest, these overly sculpted, muscular figures were clearly where Kenner was headed. 20 years later, I have genuine love for the Power of the Force figures. Just as the originals make me nostalgic for early childhood, Power of the Force makes me nostalgic for my teenage years. Watching those THX videos, having the toys lightsaber fight in a haze of pot smoke. Despite the growing pains in the first 11 figures, the Power of the Force sculpts got really good. The 97 version of Bosk is my favorite. And given the prices a 1985 Han Solo Carbonite fetches on eBay, a cheap bastard like me is happy to settle for a second place Power of the Force version. Still, neither holds a candle to my childhood Han Solo and Carbonite original.
It brings up all kinds of ideas of things, and funny moments.
I think I had a choice.